Hello everyone, welcome to my guide to GMX, the new TCG exclusive archetype coming out in Burst Protocol. This is a new archetype of non-dinosaur GMX monsters and the currently singular dinosaur GMX monster and their dinosaur fusions that is based around the concept of scientists turning into dinosaurs. Um, this archetype is really cool. If anybody's a fan of Jurassic Park, this is basically the Jurassic Park archetype. Kinda. I guess they don't turn into dinosaurs, but it's got the same vibes. Um, this archetype is really cool. As somebody who's who's played a lot of dinosaur strategies, the most viewed video on my channel is the Jurrac Ryu-ge video. Uh, I really like these cards. I think they do so much for dinosaurs in general, for pretty much any dinosaur strategy other than like Dynamorphia, for reasons we'll get into. But like these are phenomenal cards, and I can't wait to get into them. So let's do it. So first off, we've got the first important card I want to talk about, which is the fusion spell, which I feel like kind of puts everything else in a perspective, which is GMX Applied Experiment number 55. It is the fusion spell of the deck, and it allows you to excavate the top cards of your deck until you've excavated a GMX monster and a dinosaur monster. And then you lose 400 life points for each excavated card. Then you can fusion summon a GMX fusion from your extract using any excavated monsters as material, and then you shuffle the rest back into the deck. And this is a hard once per turn. This card is insane. It's obviously not as good as like a traditional branded fusion style card, but it's almost as good. It's really powerful. This can let you hit all kinds of really good cards depending on what you hit. It allows you to do so many powerful things. This is a phenomenal card. And along with that, it is also a one card starter because it allows you to make any of your dino fusions. While none of those allow you to combo by themselves, it depends on what you hit. Almost every single GMX monster is good to hit. The only one that isn't great to hit is the GMX Kimridge, the GMX chairman, who can reveal himself in the hand to add a GMX Applied Experiment number 55 from your deck or grave to your hand, and if you do, you shuffle him back into the deck. This is good because it puts more GMX monsters into your deck to hit off of your Applied Experiment. And then if it's summoned by a monster effect, you can target 2 cards in your grave that are GMX cards or dinosaur monsters, place them on the top of the deck in any order, and then you can destroy an attack position monster your opponent controls. This card is really good for getting to your Applied Experiment. It's another one card starter, and it is really solid removal. Spoiler, there is a way to summon GMX monsters on your opponent's turn, and this is like the best one to hit. The only thing that sucks is your opponent's monster has to be in attack position, but that's really it. Otherwise, this card's quite good. After that, we've got one of the most powerful cards in the archetype, GMX Researcher Solande. If this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a non-warrior GMX or a level 3 or lower dinosaur monster from your deck. And then if this card is special summoned by a monster effect, you can add a GMX Spell Trap from your deck to your hand. And then the last effect is if a dinosaur fusion is on the field, you can shuffle this from the field into the deck and then negate the effects of one face-up card in the field until the end of the turn. That effect doesn't really matter. It's pretty mediocre. But the rest of the effects on this card are unbelievable. It's a tour guide, but it's not just a tour guide for GMX monsters. It's a tour guide for any level 3 or lower dinosaur. That enables some really interesting things. This card is a 1-card synchro 4, 5, or 6. And along with that, it also can summon the next monster we'll get into, which is the GMX associated dinosaur. But also, if this card's summoned by monster effect, you can search a GMX spell trap, which gets into my first issue I have with the GMX cards that should entirely be solved by a second wave, and that is that there's not another good GMX spell trap to search. And by that I mean there's not another GMX spell trap to search at all, meaning you can only really search Applied Experiment. This is good for if your Kimridge gets negated, but realistically, if your opponent has a way to negate Kimridge, they're going to be able to negate the spell, unless it's like a monster negate specifically. Then Solande's search effect could come up, but at the moment, this effect just barely matters, which sucks, because this card is really good. That effect is so strong. Note, this card's a fire, so you can also do some cool stuff with Promethean Princess, where you can make that Promethean, and then summon this back, and then use it to search a GMX spell trap, and then link into, like, Raging Phoenix or Amblo Whale. That's so sick, but you just can't do anything with it at the moment. Now, there's almost no way we're not getting a GMX spell trap in the next wave of support. So this will entirely be solved by the next wave. Because I'm going to be honest, the card just has to do something. As long as it does something, we're good. If that something is good, that's even better. But right now, you just want something decent to search. Because at the moment, all this does is search follow-up, which is fine. It's just not incredible. After that, we've got the next, or I guess actually before we move on to the dinosaur, I am going to talk about the one GMX monster we are not playing, and that is GMX Associate Noma. Noma, if it's special summoned by monster effect, lets you target a card from your grave and your opponent's grave and place them on either the top or the bottom of the deck. And then if a monster is normal or special summoned to your opponent's field while this card is in the monster zone, you can fusion summon a GMX monster from your extra deck by using materials from your field, grave, or banishment. This is a good effect. I'm going to be honest. I don't think this card's terrible as like a one of. The problem is there's just not enough good GMX monsters to search. This deck has 3 ways to fusion summon. The fusion spell, the Dino, which we will get into, and this card. But there's not really a third dinosaur to make with this card. So at the moment, this card doesn't do anything. And that is another thing I would like to see in the next wave is another interruption you can summon with this card. So this card's actually playable. Because the way the fusion spell works, you want to be playing a decent amount of GMX monsters. I'm not super happy that right now the only... we just don't have that many fusions to make, and we also just don't have that many main deck monsters. So inherently, this fusion spell is kind of risky, because you don't run enough GMXs to guarantee you won't hit like 10 to 12 cards on your way to making your fusion, which means you're going to take a lot of damage, which can be neat. You can do like Psychic End Punisher stuff maybe, but like overall it's not ideal. By the way, the amount you need to lose in order to just die to this card is 20. So if you excavate 20 cards without hitting a dinosaur and a GMX, you will just lose the game. So keep that in mind when deck building. You need to make sure you're able to hit off this card, or else you will just lose the game. And then after that, we've got probably my favorite card in the new wave, which is Returned Dino Deneen. It is a level 1 dinosaur monster. That is very important. If this card is special summoned by a monster effect, you can add a GMX monster from your deck to your hand. And then during the main phase, you can fusion summon a dinosaur fusion from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. And if this card is sent to the grave, you can make all dinosaur monsters you control gain 400 attack. This card is incredible. This card is what made me think these cards are good, because obviously this is what you're going to be summoning with Solande, which is quite good. But there's a lot more you can do with this card, because it is a level 1 dinosaur that gets you to Kimridge, which gets you to the fusion spell, which does everything. Misk is, the most infamous of dino cards. Have you read Misk? I will go ahead and read it to you now if you have not. You can quick effect during the main phase, pitch it from your hand in order to make all dinosaurs you control unaffected by your opponent's activated effects during the main phase. And then in the grave, you can banish it and any number of dinosaurs from your grave to summon a dinosaur from your deck with a level equal to the total number of monsters banished, but it's destroyed during the end phase. So one of the issues with Misk, I know, a limited card, there's issues with it, is that Misk has not had a good level 1 monster to summon. It's got Animadorned Archosaur, but this isn't a 1-card combo on its own. It's had the Jurrac Megalo, but that's also not a 1-card combo on its own. All this does is you can theoretically get it destroyed during the end phase, and then it can send a Stero, which is an interruption, but it's never been able to do a combo on its own. It's never been a starter. Now it is. Deneen gets you to combo on its own. Deneen gets you to Kimridge, which gets you the fusion spell, which is a 1-card starter. So Deneen does everything, therefore Misk does everything. This means any way to send a dinosaur to grave, such as Oviraptor, or the Jurrac level 4 starter, or even Foolish Burial, can get you to full GMX combo, which I think is so important. The only thing that sucks is obviously Misk plays kind of poorly into something like a Fua, but it's really not the end of the world. And obviously Misk is an insane card to draw. I really am surprised they did not put Misk to 3 with this support wave, considering I imagine they want this archetype to do well, although who knows, because none of the hot cards are high rarity. But I mean, I really think the synergy with Misk in this deck is what makes it so strong. And now, before we move on to the rest of the deck, I do want to talk about the fusion monsters, which is, the first one is GMX Alos. It takes a GMX monster and a dinosaur monster, and each time your opponent normal or specials a monster, you gain 200 life. That's to offset the damage you'll be taking off of your fusion spell and our other fusion monster. And then it allows you to target a GMX monster or a dinosaur monster in your grave or banishment, summon it, and then this card cannot attack the turn that effect is activated, and at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can destroy that monster. So it's got like the construct effect. Only better because it works on any monster. This card's awesome for a variety of reasons, but the main one is that you can summon back any of the cards you hit off of your fusion spell. So usually the way you'll be playing this is you're going to use your fusion spell to summon this, and then this will summon back one of the monsters you got off of your fusion spell. So, you know, maybe an Oviraptor, maybe you can get your Misk back from the banishment. That's something else really cool you can do. Because previously, Dinos had to go through some really annoying hoops to get this card back. They had to, like, Leviair bring it back, or they had to, like, Quatlish shuffle it back in a deck, or they had to, like, the worst ones, like, Transcendosaurus Drillaganathus, which is, like, just a rank 6, that's all it does. Really bad stuff. Now we just get to do it for free, and you can do it every single turn, because Alos can be made super easily. And then it's also good for just summoning the monsters you get back. Obviously, the other cool ones is like the Jurrac starter you can get, which is also a 1-card starter for its own engine. Really, really cool stuff. I love this card. I think this card's really good. After that, we have Jurrac GMX Velox. It also takes a GMX monster and a dinosaur monster, and each time your opponent normal or specials a monster, you gain 200 life. Glad this is on both of the fusions. And during your opponent's turn, you can target a card your opponent controls, activate the top cards of your deck until you activate a GMX monster or a dinosaur monster, and then you lose 400 life points for each activated card, and then add that GMX monster or dinosaur monster to your hand, or special summon it, and then shuffle the rest in the deck. So it basically, it's a lot of text to basically read. Target a card your opponent controls, and then once you hit a GMX or dinosaur monster, you can summon or add that monster to your hand, and then pop their card. That is a really strong interruption. There's some really cool things you can hit off of this card. We are on some of them in this list. The best one is probably Dino Wrestler Pankratops. If you summon Pank off of this, that's an extra pop, which is really good. But you can even like add to hand an Ovi, add to hand a Miscellaneous Saurus, summon Deneen, and then add something off that to hand. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Even like UCT is good to hit as a follow-up OTK option. Super strong card. Like it a lot. That being said, having more burn on this card along with the fusion spell can be backbreaking. Obviously this one's not as rough as the fusion spell because you just have to hit a GMX or a dinosaur. Oh, other good targets, by the way. This summons Kimridge on your opponent's turn, and it can summon Noma on your opponent's turn, which is also really cool. That's extra interruption as well. But yes, this card is good, but it is another kind of risky card. It's probably my second to least favorite card. It's like Noma's my least favorite, and then Velox, ironically, because it's the transform version of her, is also kind of my iffy one. But it is the only interruption in the GMX engine as of now, which that is my my last issue with the GMX cards, which is they don't have much in the way of their own interruptions. This is the only card that on its own can interrupt something, which is pretty rough. That is the one thing I think this deck really needs to get in its next wave to be good, and that is more interruptions. This deck needs more stuff to do on your opponent's turn, needs more ways to interact. If it gets that, I think this deck will legitimately be, maybe not Mitsurugi good, but it'll be close. I really think this deck has the ability to go the distance. I think this can be a very solid tier, like, 1.5, maybe tier 1 strategy, depending on what happens with the ban list and all the other stuff. I mean, Blazing Dominion has a lot of good cards in it, but we'll see. I have high hopes for these cards. I think they're quite good. Then we'll get into the non-GMX cards. We've got the 3 Soul Eating Oviraptor, which on summon searches a dinosaur or sends it to grave, and then can also pop dinos on your field to summon dinos from your grave. Card's really good. It's a 1-card starter because it gets you to Misk, and then Misk gets you to Deneen. What's really cool is if you start with this, you can guarantee that you get to end on a Dolka because you can summon back your Misk and then use the Ovi and the Misk to make your Logia or your Dolka, which is really cool, and those cards are very strong, and it guarantees you follow-up because you'll have the Misk back in grave, so you can just do a whole combo on the next turn. Then we have 3 Fossil Dig. It's just Rhoda for dinosaurs. Crazy card. Then we have 1 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, the big boss of dinosaurs. This card can be summoned by banishing 2 dinosaur monsters from your grave, And once per turn during the main phase, can quick effect destroy a monster in your hand or field to change all face-up monsters your opponent controls to face-down defense position. And then this card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. And at the start of the damage step, if it attacks defense position monster, you can burn your opponent for 1,000. And if you do, send that defense position monster to the graveyard. This card is crazy for board breaking. It's also a really good interruption because a full board Book of Moon is crazy. Crazy card. That being said, even though it is crazy, you don't have to play it. If you really want to play as much non-engine as possible, you legitimately could maybe cut like Tyranno and Animador Archosaur and Double Pill, because that's the only reason those three are in this deck. But I do think the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno gives you the follow-up this deck kind of needs. It's also like just a good extra interruption as well. Unlike the Jurrac deck, which can't use this as an interruption unless it wants to lose its follow-up, this deck can use it no problem. As long as the card lives, you will have the follow-up OTK, or at least most of the OTK, and then the Alos can help you get the rest of the way there. Also, importantly, this card is only just has to first be special summoned from the hand with its effect. So if you summon this, so you can on later turns summon this back with Alos, which is awesome. They can't even like Bestial this to get it away because Alos can summon from grave or banishment. A really cool little synergy there. And then we've got one Dino Wrestler Pankratops. You don't have to play this card, but I really like it as a thing you can get off of your Velox. It's also just a good card to have in a dinosaur deck. Having like a searchable board breaker off of your Oviraptor is really nice. Yeah, it's just a good card. I like it. You don't have to play it though. The other card we're on is Animadorn. The last dinosaur we're on is Animadorn Archosaur, which on summon pops a dino in your hand or face up field to add a reptile, sea serpent, or wing beast to the same original level as that destroyed monster. We don't care about that. Or an evolution pill spell, which is what we actually care about from your deck to your hand. Which that's not going to matter until we get into the evolution pill, which banishes a dinosaur and a non-dinosaur monster from your hand or grave to summon a level 7 or higher dinosaur from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. And then you can only activate one double evolution pill per turn. This card is really solid. It's basically just a way to get either your Pankratops or your Ultimate Conductor Tyranno into rotation really easily. Just keep in mind, if you summon UCT like this, you won't be able to summon it back with an Alos, so you do want to be a little careful about that, but you can always put it back with something like a Camridge, so it's not the end of the world. This card's really good. It's very easy to get to with Animadorn Archosaur. It's just nice to have, and it works really well in this deck because this deck's full of non-dinosaur monsters. That being said, if you do want to have easy access to a non-dinosaur, it might be worth it to throw not an SP, a Link Kuriboh into this deck, which I didn't include just because I think the extra space is really tight with how I've built this, and I wanted to show off all the interesting options you have, but you could realistically cut like a Velox. You probably don't need 3 of this card for like a Link Kuriboh. I think that's totally fine. After that, we've got our non-engine. That's right. This is a Dino deck with 19 non-engine cards. That's like unheard of. I don't think I've ever seen Dino get to play that much non-engine. It's a little risky because you're not on a ton of Dinos or GMX monsters, so you might get screwed over by the fusion spell, but I think the math is fine here. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think in 40 cards, you're pretty good. We've got 1 Called by the Grave, 3 Fallen in the Virtuous, because this deck's extra deck is also not super tight, but you don't have to play this card. I just like it, and it gets way better with the new Ecclesia the Black Dragon coming out in the next set. It even has extra synergies, because you can target one of your level 8 GMX monsters in your grave and shuffle those in a deck, which is cute. It also, if you wanted to play the babies, this is a way to pop the babies as well. So this can also be like an extender / starter going when you go first, which is cool. And then we've got 3 Forbidden Droplet, 3 Fualos, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Bell, and 3 Imperm. I just think this is the best non-engine going to the next format. I might be wrong. Who knows? And then after that, we've got... Oh, one other thing is if you wanted to forgo Animadorn Archosaur, Pankratops, and UCT, you could, I believe... Oh, never mind. I'm lying. Alos is a light. I was going to say you could play Impulse, but no, Alos is a light. But it's an idea. Anyway, after that, for our extra deck, we've got 1 Evolzar Logi and 1 Evolzar Dolka. If you feel like you only need Dolka, which is like the more powerful of the two because it's 2 monster negates versus Logia is 1 interruption, you could cut Logia for something. Probably not worth it, though. I do feel like both of them have a place. After that, we got 1 Promethean Princess and 1 Amblo Whale. If you wanted, you could also try and play Raging Phoenix and or Zelantis, which are both really good. After that, we've got one IP Masquerena and one SP Little Knight. If you start your combo with Solande, if you're doing like a 1-card line and you don't hit anything crazy off your GMX, you do want to have the IP as an interruption. Nothing in this deck locks you, so it's just a really solid thing to have. It's also just a good card. Like, running this line is not bad. Again, this deck struggles to have things to end on. This is a very easy option to end on. And then after that, we've got the targets for our Fallen and the Virtuous, the 2 Albion, and the 1 Ecclesia the Black Dragon. And then anything interesting in the side deck that I haven't talked about yet, Quatless is an interesting option. If you send this off of your Applied Experiment, you will then get to search an Evolution Pill, which is pretty cool. And it's also, like, not a bad card in general. The only issue is you're not banishing that many dinosaurs in this list, so I'd maybe consider this in, like, the Jurrac version, but I don't know about this version. We've got the 2 babies, which I think are not necessary in this build at all. You could run, like, a really heavy engine build that plays, like, these and Ground Xenos and maybe even Lost World or, like, the Jurrac cards. But I don't think these are necessary at all. And I think they kind of weigh the deck down. They're not very high card quality. You don't want to be drawing cards that need other cards exclusively to work. We've got the Jurrac Megalo, which there's something really cool you can do with this card. It being a level 1 tuner and Deneen being a level 1 and the fusions being level 8s means that those 3 together make a Jurrac Astero. So you don't even have to play like a full Jurrac engine to make Astero, which is cool. It means you could tech in copies of Megalo just as something to hit off of your Applied Experiment that you can then summon back with Alos, which is pretty cool. It means that you can go like, let's say you go Solande for Deneen, Deneen search Kimridge, Kimridge get Applied Experiment fuse into Alos, and you hit a Megalo. You can use Alos to summon back the Megalo and then make Astero, and then do whatever from there. But Astero is just a really good interruption on its own. You can then like send it to grave, maybe for like an IP Masquerena with the Solande, to then have it in grave as the board wipe, right? And that's like a solid board, legitimately. And then we got the Meteor for it, of course, the Volcano, which you could easily like play this as another starter in the Jurrac version. Ground Xeno is an option if you wanted to play Megalo, or even Xeno Meteoros is like fine in this deck. It opens you up to some really interesting synchro plays. Also really solid card, and Ground Xeno's a good card. Like, it is legitimately quite strong. It just plays bad in a Droll, which is something you'll have to be careful of, but hey, guess what? Droll's at 2 now, so not as scary. Also, cool thing that I forgot to mention about this card, it's also Poly in the grave, which is finally useful. That effect has never been good, except for making, like, the 1 Transcendosaurus guy. That actually matters now, which is cool. And then my favorite stuff that I'm going to get into eventually that I really want to talk about, because it's, you know, it's like my baby, is the Ryu-ge cards, which actually do, in theory, work really good with this archetype. There's just one fatal flaw that I will get into when we get into that deck list, which, speaking of which, before we get into that deck list, I am going to get into the replays. So let's get into those. So we're going to start with 1 Solande. We're going to go normal Solande, and then Solande is going to summon Deneen. Deneen is going to search a copy of Kimridge. Kimridge is going to shuffle back and search our Applied Experiment. Applied Experiment is going to hit the bare minimum here. The worst 2 things to hit are UCT and Kimridge, so I just had to hit that just to show off what this combo does with the bare minimum resources. But obviously, if you hit like an OV or a Misk or anything else off of this, you get to undon way more. It is only room to be more powerful. Then we make IP Masquerena, we gain 400, we use Alos to summon back Deneen, and then Deneen can fuse with the Alos to make Velox. And that's the board. It's very simple, but it is a 1-card combo. It is 3 interruptions, 2 off of the SP and 1 off the Velox, with hypothetically room to be more depending on what you hit off of the Velox. This version of the deck, the pure version, is very low to the ground. It doesn't make a huge big board like Dino's kind of known to do. It plays very low to the ground, very mid-rangey, and just kind of makes a decent board with a lot of non-engine backing it up to then OTK your opponent on the next turn with the UCT and the like the Alos being able to summon a bunch of big guys. Let's get into the next replay. The second replay I have for this version of the deck is the Oviraptor combo. We're going to go Oviraptor to search the Misk. Misk is going to send itself to make our guys ineffective for the rest of the turn. This notably means we can't really be Nibiru'd, which is really nice. Then we're going to use Deneen to search our Kimridge. Kimridge is going to get our fusion spell, and then we're going to use the fusion spell to make our Alos. Hit again, hitting UCT and the Kimridge just to show the bare minimum. We're then going to summon back Miscellaneous Saurus, which is then going to Ixies for Dolka. And then we're going to use Deneen to make Velox. This is the same amount of interruptions as the last board. The only difference is that we have Dolka as our interruption instead of IP Masquerena, and we have Misk in the we'll have Misk in the grave after we use the Dolka. So we also have the follow-up Misk to summon like an I don't know how many we have in grave. By then we should have 4 in grave. So you can summon an Oviraptor on the next turn to get to a UCT, or to get to Animadorn, or just summon Animadorn straight out of the deck, depending on what else you have in hand. A lot of options with the Misk from that position. If you wanted, you could also play a second Deneen to get like full GMX combo in the next turn as well. So a lot of really cool options there. But those are like the 2 1-card combos of the deck that aren't random. Notably, Applied Experiment is a random card. It's almost certain to hit something. There's just, like, mathematically, you are more likely to hit a card that lets you do a combo than there is to hit a card that doesn't let you do a combo. Because even, like, Solande, I believe, not if you start with the fusion spell, I guess, but, like, any of the dinosaurs should let you do a combo except UCT and Pankratops. And those still give you interruptions. So, like, you're gonna hit something realistically. The next list I want to show off is Jurrac GMX. This uses a little more engine, although not that much more, surprisingly. And this deck focuses around the Jurrac cards. The Jurrac cards are really, really powerful. This is one way to fix the deck's low ceiling, is by playing these cards. It just comes at the caveat of having to play some more bricks, as in the Jurrac Aeolos. Megalo's not terrible, but it's also not amazing to draw either. But this deck, I think, is the best version between the 3 I'm going to show off. I really like this version because Stego is a really powerful 1-card starter. It's a phenomenal card to hit off of your Applied Experiment. It just does everything. If you didn't know, this card pops a card on you control, which can include itself, sends a Dino from your deck to grave, and summon Jurracs from your hand or deck whose levels equal the level of the Dino you sent. So the idea is you're going to pop itself, send Misk. Misk is going to, and then you, because you sent a level 4, you can summon 2 level 1, or you summon 4 level 1s. So you're going to summon 2 Megalos and 2 Aeolos, which lets you climb your way into a Jurrac Astero, which is an unbelievable card that gives you so much interruption. By itself, it is giving you a board wipe when it's in the grave, a special summon negate on the field, and it sets the Jurrac Volcano from deck, which can summon a Meteor from your extra deck, which is also a board wipe. So board wipes out the wazoo, and also the Meteor also summons a tuner back from your grave, which can summon the Megalo, and then the Megalo can also pop a card, or not pop a card, but it can also, when it's popped, send a Jurrac from your extra deck to the grave. And the most important thing about Astero, it is not once per turn. So if you have multiple Asteros in your grave, those are all board wipes. So yeah, that's pretty killer. That's pretty strong. Really, really scary stuff. Anyway, the only difference is here, we're running the same GMX packages last time, the same 10 cards. Only instead of Oviraptor, we're running 3 Stego. I always read the OCG name. The 1 Misk still, because this card's broken, and we have to send it off of our Stego. The 3 Fossil Dig, because it gets us any of our good cards. The 3 Megalo, which we're running a third one, because sometimes you want to, like, pop something with Volcano to summon the Megalo from deck. Megalo also can just summon itself if you control a dinosaur. Also, we can do the play I mentioned in the first deck, which is you can summon these, you can hit the Megalo off of your fusion spell and then summon it back with your Alos. And then we also have 2 Aeolo, which notably, you can do the same thing with Aeolo because it's also a tuner. So you can hit it off of your thing and then summon it to make an Astero, which is really good. And Astero is way better in this list because we have the Volcano, which can allow you to keep extending further by summoning the Stego from deck. And because we're on 5 level 1s, we should have enough level 1s still to do the full combo, which is really nice. We're then still on the 1 Pankratops. Again, I still just really like this card as an option. Notably as well, we take out most of the dinosaurs out of our deck. We take out 5 total when we do our, actually 6, sorry. 6 dinosaurs total when we do our full combo, and then a 7th one with Deneen. So we end up having like the 2 Stego and the 1 Pankratops and the extra level 1 dinosaur left in the deck. So there's only like 4 dinosaurs, so I do think that's kind of risky when you use Velox, but you also have the GMX card, so you have about, what, the 3 Kimridge, 2 to 3 Kimridge, 2 to 3 Solande, depending on which one you hit off of your fusion spell, and then the 2 Stego and the 1 Pankratops. So you should have like what 5 plus 3, so 8 cards in your deck to hit off of your Velox, which can be a little scary. So I think having that extra card's good, and it also, because you thin out that much, it's more likely you'll hit something that's good, like a Pankratops. So I like it. And then the non-engine is similar to the first list, except we're not on Fallen the Virtuous. So Called By, Droplet, Fua, Ash, Bell, Imper. And then for extra deck stuff, we're on the Dolka still. We're on just 2 of each of the fusions. This is realistically probably what you should be on. You realistically probably don't need 3 of each. We're on 3 of each Jurrac name because you will go through 3 of these in your basic combo on your opponent's turn. 1 Brute, was it Horned Brute Carnivorous, which is just a card that you use to climb further in your Jurrac combos. 1 Velfido, which you need to climb further in your Jurrac combos. Notably, this card isn't necessary. If you wanted to cut the Horned Brute Carnivorous for something else, you absolutely could. And then the 1 Raging Phoenix and the 1 Promethean Princess. Notably, Raging Phoenix can trigger off of us destroying our meteors with its effect, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, let's get into the combo. So this is my running concept at the moment for Ryu-ge GMX, but it is a big work in progress. And I want to preface the positives of this list first. The big one is that this is potentially the strongest archetype to ever be mixing with Ryu-ge. The only thing I don't like is that it doesn't bridge in a Ryu-ge. It actually would have if we had Herald, because you could use Solange to summon Deneen, and then, not Deneen, to summon like a Megalo, and then use the Solange and the Megalo to make Herald, and then link Herald for Gravity Controller, and then search Mistva. That's hilarious. Unfortunately, they banned Herald, so we can't do that. But you can do, you can still go Mistva to get Warzone, which then gets any of your starters. So you can get Oviraptor to do Dolka, you can do you can get just Misk, and then Misk in the grave can banish to summon Deneen, so you can do it without your normal summon, and then also to do some cool stuff with Hakva, theoretically. Or you can add Stego, which is what we're doing in this list, is adding Stego, doing the full Drat combo, doing the Ryu-ge setup where we summon 3 monsters off of the Warzone, making a Varudross, and then also setting up Rivalry, so we have that layered interruption on our opponent's turn, and then doing the full Drat combo to do all of what we did in the first game. Crazy stuff. The end board for this, for the 1-card combo, is like 8 to, I think it's 9 actually, 9 interruptions, which is ridiculous. It absolutely fixes the issue of having a too low ceiling by a lot. And it also gives you a ton of extenders, because these 12 cards are all starters that don't take your normal summon and are phenomenal extenders, since any of these get to Warzone, and Warzone gets you to any dinosaur monster. Now, the cons. First off, Ryu-ge has a lot of bricks. Although notably, a big up to this version of the deck is that you could realistically, if you wanted, just play the 2 Emva and the 2 Hakva, and then cut these 3 cards from the list. It would lower your ceiling somewhat, and it would make you a little weaker into cards like Fua, but you could also just side these as well, and they're like really good options in the side. So you would actually only have 4 bricks in the Ryu-ge engine, which for a 60-card deck isn't that bad. Here's the actual problem with this deck. You are playing 60 cards, which means there is a fairly decent chance you will just kill yourself off of your fusion spell. Really rough stuff. This card will just kill you sometimes because you only got 6 GMX monsters in your 60-card deck. You are still going to probably hit something, but it is really scary. And then if you combine that with a Velox, especially after doing Stego combo, it is very likely you will kill yourself between this and the Applied Experiment. So this list is really under construction. I've got to figure out what the ratios are to not kill yourself off of this card. Now, that being said, if me or somebody else can figure out the ratios for this deck to make you not die when you use this card and the Velox, I think this is the best version of GMX. I really do. I think this version has so much power, has so much gas, so many starters that don't take your normal summon, so many ways to push into boards, a really powerful grind game, and just everything. I think this version of the deck is so incredibly powerful. But it's got to be 60 cards. That's how Ryu-ge works. It just is. It's got to be 60, or else you're not going to have any room for non-engine, which I don't think you can do in the modern era. You could maybe cut this down to like 50-ish cards, but again, you're going to have very little non-engine at that point. So I wouldn't recommend it. However, I would recommend this list the most to play around with, just to see if you can figure it out. I would love to see somebody solve this deck, take it to an event, and go crazy mode with it, because I think it has the potential to go crazy mode at an event. I think this deck is terrifying. If this deck gets to go first and does its combo and doesn't kill itself, it is probably going to win the game. Like, this deck's board is so unbelievably hard to break. And going second, it's just as scary. Obviously, the Mistva and Warzone do a 1-card OTK that's really, really powerful, and then you have really scary OTK potential with the rest of your deck too. Who knows? Maybe you do play this deck 60 cards all gas. I could see it too, to be honest. So many options with this deck. My favorite version of it, definitely probably not the best unless people can figure it out. This deck needs solved really badly in order for me to say this is the best version of the deck. Anyway, I don't have a combo for this. It's literally just do the Ryu-ge thing, which you can see in a ton of my other videos, older videos, and do the Stego thing that I just showed off. Literally just do those two combos together. Nothing complicated. But anyway, that's the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. I really like this archetype, if you couldn't tell. It's why I kind of went a little more in depth with this one. I hope to see y'all next time. Goodbye.